If only parenting were as smooth as bourbon. I'm Lene.
And I'm Jordan. And this is Bourbon and Babies.
Straight up parenting
on the rocks.
All right, here we are. We are back. It is Bourbon and Babies time.
We have a celebrity here today.
We do.
We have celebrities here today.
That's right.
National celebrities who have taken time off their busy gamut of national circuits to come and talk to us folks
Making
here.
Our guests uncomfortable.
That's what I do. I make people uncomfortable.
Keep trying.
Keep trying. We have Heather and Adrian, who you may or may not have seen on the local news / internet / everywhere in the last month.
Also national news.
Yeah, well, yes. We are going to tackle today the topic of gender. And I feel like this is an important one for us to talk about because a lot of people just don't know a lot. And I feel like just in the time I've grown up, a lot has changed, especially with how we label people, how people identify. And we're hoping that we could clear the air a bit today in our episode and make people more comfortable with how they talk and what they know.
But before we get into that, we got to talk bourbon.
So today, we decided to experiment with ingredients we had in our house. And for the first time all season, there were peaches at the grocery store. So I had some fresh peaches in my house. So I decided I wanted to do a peach bourbon cocktail. So I called this one the Charred Peach.
Wow.
Because inside the bourbon barrel, we have the charred staves of the bourbon barrel. So we got the Charred Peach. So we muddled the fresh peach. We put 2 ounces of New Riff bourbon, 1.5 ounces of triple sec, and ice. Shake it up real nice and pour it over some cubes of ice. And it's nice and sweet, refreshing, getting me ready for spring, even though we're nowhere near there yet.
It's coming. It's a transition.
Right? It's a transition. We are on our way to spring.
We are moving into spring as we speak.
Yes.
So speaking of transitions, you guys have had quite the adventure.
We have. So Adrian came out as trans back in September, and we had to come up with a reaction to this.
You posted a video on social media, and we'll get to that video in a second. You posted a video on social media, and it went viral. And as soon as it started going viral, we, knowing that you're local and because we know you, reached out and said, hey, will you come on Bourbon and Babies? And immediately thereafter, who else reached out to you?
Good Morning America, The Today Show, USA Today,
CNN.
Wow. ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News eventually.
But we're still your favorite, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you have to put the...
You knew us first.
News. I did. I've seen you perform. Yes, but it was amazing, the response that we got. When I initially put up my post for Adrian for his birthday, which was just the mom post that we do that says, my child is the most amazing child in the world, and they survived another year of life. Celebration. It was private, just to my friends, so only people like you guys would have seen it. But I had several friends who reached out to me and said, this is beautiful, and there are people in my world that need to see this. Will you make it public, or can I screenshot it? And after several people reached out, within the first 24 hours, I approached Adrian and said, people think this is a bigger deal than what we thought it was. So are you okay with me making it public? And he thought about it and agreed. So we did. But within the first 24 hours, it went from, 50 likes and maybe 12 comments to, thousands of likes, thousands of shares. Wow. I think at this point it's up to over 17,000 shares just directly from my post.
So now that we've made our listeners so insane, tell us what the post was. Adrian, why don't you tell us? Will you tell us what your mom did?
She approached me with the idea at first. We always did some sort of post for our birthdays, or my mom did anyways. And she asked if we could do a photo shoot for this one. And I said, okay, I don't see why, but might as well, I suppose. And then she said, let's do a gender reveal photo shoot so that I can tell all of my friends in one fell swoop, by the way, this is Adrian now.
What was your name before?
It was Hannah.
We normally do a family photo every year to give out for Christmas, but this time we decided to postpone that until his birthday. And it was just going to be a family picture, as we had always done. But I really wanted to be thoughtful this year, especially in how I posted what I was going to say, because I wanted the reaction to be positive. I felt like from my friends, I was able to be confident that it would be positive.
The reaction to what?
The reaction that my cisgender female daughter at birth was now a trans male. That, my daughter had transitioned to my son, and that I was going to celebrate it, and I wanted everybody to get on board with that. I didn't really honestly know how people would receive it, because there's so much negativity around our trans community right now, mainly because of politics and the media and how everything is approached with fear and hate right now.
Right. Angst. There's a lot of angst around words and who is what, and if you get to choose or be or all. Yeah, there's a lot of angst. I think you're absolutely right.
Yes.
And it's not even just in the cisgender community, it's in the transgender community as well. There's a term called transtrenders, where people will pretend to be trans because it's interesting or it's the new trendiest thing, which is... It's sad that that's a term, just because I think everyone should be able to experience their gender however they want, but it's something that a lot of people feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
So honestly, when he told me, as connected as I am, and you guys know this, to the LGBTQIA+ community, I honestly did not know how to react as a parent. Had it been my friend, had one of you said it to me, I'd have been like, right on, hope your spouse is going to handle this well, because the burden goes on the family for the most part. As friends, it's really easy to be loving and accepting, but when it comes into your family, you have to be more than just supportive. You have to be able to celebrate. So we took time to tell close friends and family and answer a lot of questions that it sounds like you guys might have today. Mm-hmm. And also for me to learn what I didn't know about the trans community, and I still have a long journey ahead of me to learn the rest of it. I mean, the whole community does. But after we took the time to tell people close to us, we realized that we were getting really sloppy with explaining it. So especially newer acquaintances, people would think that, I had 3 children, my youngest son, my daughter, and my oldest son, or that I had a daughter that died somewhere along the way. Oh. So there were a lot of really odd conversations because of how sloppy we had got. The transgender reveal photo shoot was also to kind of help clue people in that I was announcing that I had a son. And when expectant parents do that, everybody knows that the reasonable response is, congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Full support. Nobody says, oh, a son, bleh. I wish this was a daughter. So I mean, because I didn't know how to respond, and because I was kind of stumped for the appropriate expression, we thought we'd make it really user-friendly for everybody else to say, well, number one, Heather's at it again, doing something crazy online. But number 2, oh, it's a gender reveal. Congratulations.
This was actually an appropriate gender reveal versus the gender reveal that we had, which we've joked on episodes of Bourbon and Babies in the past about how actually we should have just called it a sex party, because all we were doing was revealing the sex of our child. Right. In fact, not the gender. But I mean, first of all, I thought it was brilliant and so well done.
I just love that photo of you with the cigar and the belly out. I'm just like, that's brilliant.
I love it.
So Adrian, I'm wondering, how did you come up with Adrian?
I do a lot of cosplaying and role-playing online. I pretend to write as a character. And one of my original characters' name was Adrian. And it had been a name I had been using for about 5 years, so I was comfortable with it. And I was also considering Jack at one point, but we already have a Jack in the family.
So, that'd be a little confusing. Yeah,
so I went with Adrian also because it's a little gender neutral, because I identify as trans male non-binary. So
tell us what that means.
It means I'm comfortable with he, him pronouns and they, them pronouns.
Okay.
And Adrian can be a he, him, or a they, them. It could be a she, her, but I don't really like she, her.
So Adrian, what are some of the most common gender identifiers?
The most common are cisgender, transgender, and agender. Cisgender means you identify with the identity you were assigned at birth. So if you were born a girl, you believe you are a girl. Transgender just means that you don't necessarily identify with what gender you were assigned at birth. It doesn't mean that you were born a girl and aren't a girl, or you were born a boy and aren't a boy. It just means that parts of that identity don't necessarily fit the way you'd like them to. And agender means that you don't identify as girl or boy. You identify as something in between or neither. And that's also crossing into the non-binary territory.
We know that there's two sexes, male and female. There are over 58 genders, and they can prove that scientifically. We know about the XX chromosome, the XY chromosome. That's where you get your boys and girls. But there's XXX, there's XXY, there's YYY, there's YYX. We also know that male brains look different than female brains. A male's hippocampus is bigger than a female's. But in a transgender person, the majority of the time when they scan their brains, you'll find a male brain inside of the head of a cisgender female. So scientifically even, we're able to prove this, meaning that they could figure it out for you guys, for your children right now, but we don't even test this. So I hope that one day we'll get to a point where, in the hospital, when you're celebrating the birth of this beautiful child, that when they do the finger prick, that they'll say, by the way, I don't know how they're going to identify, but this is information that you might want to have.
I really resonated with what you said earlier about how when it's your friends' kids, it's really easy to jump on the bandwagon and say, hell yeah, way to go you, way to go. And when it's your own kid, there's this little bit of you that is so scared and fearful for, I'm sure, lots of different reasons. But I would love to hear your journey from the beginning. And Adrian, please jump in and share your perspective on the journey, since it was your journey after all.
Going back to, when children start to identify their gender, or really even more so who they're attracted to, is kind of where it all started. He first came out as pansexual, which
what does that
means that his attraction to people is not based on outward appearance, but based on intellect. So, he could be attracted to a man or a woman.
Or someone in between.
Or someone in between, non-binary.
Gender has no influence on who I can fall in love with.
And that, to me, was such an easy thing to accept, because as a child, he had been different. And different in that, he just wasn't popular. He didn't have droves of friends always hanging out at the house. And I'm a cool mom, so that didn't make sense.
Not a normal mom, I'm a cool mom.
Really awesome mom, so that was really bizarre. But, when your child stands out as being a little bit different than the others, as parents, I think we all search for an understanding of what specifically makes them different. And what I kind of hung my hat on is that this was a child who sat with the special needs kids at lunch so that he could get their lunch and serve it to them so that they would have a full lunch and a friend to sit with. He was the kid who would stay after school and help people with art projects that they couldn't complete, or studying for something that they weren't able to learn the way that the teacher was teaching it. So I just kind of hung my hat on that this kid had compassion and character beyond what typical kids his age had, and thought that's fine. So when he told me he was pansexual, first I was, oh, you are attracted to pots and pans,
How did you learn that phrase, Adrian?
At first I thought that I was bisexual just because I didn't see really a difference between girls and boys. I was like, they're both cute. There's nothing defining.
Absolutely. Look at us. We're a glorious group right here.
Have you seen this beard?
Exactly. Girls are soft and cute, and men are hard and sturdy and easy to lean on. So at first I identified as bisexual because I didn't know there was transgender, non-binary, agender. I didn't know about those yet. And then there was actually a trans man at my school, and I thought, he's pretty cute. And then I found out that there was a term for this, because I was just looking up different sexualities because I wanted to learn more about the LGBTQ, honestly.
What is the difference between pansexual and bisexual?
Bisexual means you are attracted to both men and women. Pansexual is more along the lines of just anyone. It doesn't matter what they identify as.
The biggest difference that I found is that bisexual is maybe the same way that a heteronormative person like myself, would relate to somebody. Somebody catches your eye, and that might be the spark. Whereas, you really have to catch his mind first. And then I'm sure physical attraction plays into it as well, like it does for any other living, breathing human. Yes, if we had all of these words when, we were growing up, I'm going to put myself in your guys' age category just for the sake of conversation.
I think it's fair.
I think we pretty much are.
Probably close. But, you know, if we had all of these words growing up, we wouldn't have been gay or straight. We would have had so many more ways to express ourselves. And that's part of the beauty of this generation that we're raising right now, is that they are the first generation that I really believe is going to teach us far more than we can teach them, and far more than our parents taught us.
Well, for a long time, I did have really severe depression and anxiety, social anxiety. I had a lot of dysmorphia, which is disliking the way your body looks because of the shape of it. I didn't like going to stores or trying on clothes. I hated bra shopping. I hated doing anything that required me to be undressed, which was difficult during high school solely because that's when everyone wants to be undressed, and I was not having any of it.
Which felt like a parenting win. I'm not going to lie. But we didn't see these as signs. You know, he didn't like dresses, but a lot of young ladies don't like dresses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to show off cleavage or curves, but the school system said that that was disgusting and wrong to do. So a lot of it, you know, as a, you know, strong female role model, I was like, show your cleavage. Who cares? Like, that's your body and it's beautiful. Not even understanding that there could be something beyond that. And
I didn't even understand that. I mean, I've joked about this before, but I feel like I spent most of my high school years in drag because of that. I mean,
crappy drag. It was t-shirts and jeans.
I dressed like I was uncomfortable. Right. I dressed like I was covering up my body. And for a long time, I thought it was because I had been taught that I needed to cover up my body by the school system and by other people. I didn't like being intimate with anyone that I was dating, whether they were girls, boys, or in between. I didn't like having any contact with anyone. And I just thought it was because of anxiety. I thought it was because I wasn't comfortable as a person. Mm-hmm. But looking back now, I realize it's because I wasn't comfortable in the body that I had, and I didn't know how to express that. It's really interesting how I came to the conclusion that I was trans, actually. I just assumed that because of my dysmorphia that I didn't like going bra shopping and things like that. And I was actually with my best friend, who is now my boyfriend, and I was trying to work up the courage to go into a bra shop and purchase bras because I was in need of new ones. I avoid going bra shopping, or I used to avoid going bra shopping until it was almost painful. And I was actually sitting in my car crying, trying to deal with the anxiety and fear of going into this place and trying to calm my heart down and breathe. And he suggested that I look into this and try to research a little bit.
What did he say exactly? Do you remember?
It was something along the lines of, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be upset, but this is something that a lot of trans people go through. They don't understand it at first, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what these feelings mean. But here are some references and links that you can explore this in. I just think you should read up on it.
Wow, what an angel to have in your life at that time.
It's still in my life.
Yes.
He's amazing.
Yeah. And he's incredible. I mean, he's absolutely incredible.
So your boyfriend, you might ask, how does he identify? Is he...
He's transgender as well. He identifies as, I think it's demisexual is what he told me.
What does that mean?
If I remember correctly how he explained it, it was that he has to feel a very secure emotional connection to someone before he can feel a intimate connection with someone.
That sounds like a safe way to approach any relationship.
It really does. I mean, all of these, you know, ways of identifying sexually that have emerged, I feel like should just be sex ed 101. Like, maybe think these through.
Yeah.
And if you pick straight, you're wrong. Like, maybe pick one of the other ones. If you tend to, you know, like people of the opposite sex, that's okay. But the emotional connection and, you know, mental process that goes into picking a partner should definitely be there.
Please consult the Kinsey scale.
No, but truly, when I learned about the Kinsey scale, I remember that being very eye-opening for me. And it makes sense. I remember being in high school and having a friend who, we all joked that he was asexual, which, I mean, that is a thing. And I looked it up earlier. And, you know, but I mean, at the time you're in high school and you're joking about this because you assume that he's gay because, like, he doesn't ever like girls, but then also he's not in a relationship with guys or doing anything else. And so you, being high schoolers that you are, try to make behaviors make sense in the context that you know.
Right.
And what's beautiful about your generation is that the context that you know is now so much greater because we are all so globally connected and we have access to all of this information. And man, I just think about some of these kids and when I was in high school and how much easier life would have been had we all been exposed to these. So your brother is 17?
Yes.
Okay, so he's 3 years younger than you.
Yes.
And has he been like part of this whole journey also and part of all the conversations? And okay.
Yes, he's been very involved. I mean, we're a very tight-knit family, so.
Oh yeah, actually, right after I came out to the family, my grandparents came into town and they live in Virginia, so the more conservative area of the States. And I was really kind of scared to tell them because I didn't really know how they would react to it. I was afraid it would be something that was not talked about. It was known about, but we didn't address it.
Right.
And I had started correcting them if they had said my dead name on accident because it was easier to just remind them at the moment, so it became habit.
Did you say your dead name?
Yes, dead name. That's what we call the name that we used to use.
Okay.
So Hannah would be my dead name.
Got it.
Or my government name, or whichever's. It's different for every trans person what they call it. But Lucas had said Hannah, and I said Adrian, without realizing it in front of my grandparents. And my grandma kind of looked at me and went, "Are you having a gender identity crisis?"
Really?
Because, well, she's a counselor, and that was the best way for her to word it, I suppose. And at first, my grandfather didn't really notice it. And when my grandma pointed it out, he kind of looked at me, and they both seemed very concerned and confused. And Lucas actually stood up and said, "No, his name is Adrian. He's a boy. He's my brother now." And just,
Hell yeah.
and he got, it was weird because I saw him square his shoulders and kind of get bigger and be like, "Say something. Do it. I dare you." And my grandparents both went, "This is going to take some adjusting to, but all right."
Wow.
Yeah, they received it very well. My parents, I was raised very conservatively, grew up in church. My mother still works at the church that I grew up in. And they're very conservative all the way around. You know, the way that they responded to it was incredible. And with love and just a need for more understanding. And then, you know, right before they left, we all went out to brunch together, which is my favorite meal of the week. And
Because it's the best.
the best. And, you know, my dad, who is definitely the most conservative of them, you know, hugged Adrian and said, "It doesn't matter to me how you identify. You're my grandson, and I'm going to love you no matter what."
I love
Because
that.
they know that love is love is love.
It is. And,
What's
you know,
important.
and I'm not from a family that would stop loving anybody for any reason. I just, you know, going back to what I said earlier, it is surprising when it happens in your family because it is such a change. And the family really sets the tone for how that journey is going to look. You know, we know this based on suicide rates. You know, a trans person without support from their family has an 87% chance of killing themselves or attempting to kill themselves.
Wow.
And that is a risk that is unfathomable to me that a parent would take. You know,
I don't
but
think they
do.
know. I don't
Only
think they know.
54% of parents accept trans children, which is better than, you know, half, but it's 54%. That's unconditional love. I thought that was like the number one thing you knew as a parent.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm going to keep this, and now I shall love it forever.
That statistic is shocking and incredibly upsetting. And what I don't want is for parents out there who have reacted badly to stick to their guns and feel like they've got to dig in.
No, I mean, and you guys already know this, even as young as your kids are, there are times in your parenting journey that you have to go and say, "I'm sorry. You know, I raised my voice. I said no, and I had no reason to. It had nothing to do with you. I'm sorry.
I fucked that up."
And teaching your child that it's okay to admit mistakes is huge. Regardless of when that lesson comes into play, if it's with a 2-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old, you know, it's important. And a lot of the people that have reached out to me, I mean, we've been contacted thousands of times from all over the world since this post went viral. A lot of parents have said, "I don't think that I responded correctly. I think that I made a mistake and I thought it was a phase. I thought it would pass. And I don't know if it's because I judged it that they're hanging on to this or if it's something else." And, you know, my response to them has been, I don't have all the answers. I have to preface every parent that I talk to with this. I only have one trans child. This is my very first time. But kids go through a lot of phases in their lives. And, some is they want to play sports. Sometimes they get involved in dance or theater and drop it. Kids try out all sorts of things. But what's the harm in saying, okay, you're a girl? Or, okay, then, you're a boy. Worst case scenario, they were wrong and they're going to go back. Or maybe that's best case scenario, depending on the parent. It's hard to say. But what would it matter if your child just felt that they were loved and supported through their entire journey through life, so that when they got to an adult age, they could support all of the people around them? What would be the harm in that?
Well, let me play devil's advocate. Okay, so what happens because we are in a social world and because it feels like once you put something on social media, it's out there and that's what it is? Did you have any fear around, and did you, Adrian, have any fear around, all right, if I put this out there socially, is there any going back if you feel like later that that's not how you identify anymore?
There was a bit of fear for that. I mean, it's always terrifying to bare yourself to the world and say, this is who I am right now. Is that okay? And it's always scary to know that there really isn't much turning back. I could say, I might have jumped the gun here and go back, but I don't think I will. There are some people who have, where I found out that maybe they misidentified or part of the identity that they chose doesn't stick correctly. And I think that as long as everyone's willing to admit from time to time that maybe there was some miscommunication, maybe there was something wrong with what they first said, and everyone agrees that it's okay to just move on and keep going, that it'll be all right.
Life is all a transition. Who you are as a teenager is different than who you are as a young person, a young adult or an adult. And who we are in our 20s is different than our 30s and our 40s. Our parenting style changes. Everything changes. And the fact that we're putting this immense burden on the transgender community to stay in one place and be one thing is so unfamiliar to the human journey that I think that is so important to normalize, that we call them transgender, so we say it's a transition, but what in life isn't?
That is so fucking brilliant. And I've never thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
I think what's so great is that you both have created a model of a good reaction, of something that, parents who might not know what to do can then say, well, you know what? I saw this thing on social media and this is a similar situation, and this mother reacted in a wonderful way that was completely accepting, that made hopefully their son feel great. But at the same time, let the world know how accepting they were of this, of what was going on. And if anything, I'd love to emulate that. It's not that hard to do. It really is. It's just love. Right. And letting know that that's good.
I think it is hard. And what I worry about is I think that what you're doing is incredible because, like Jordan said, it's modeling that behavior for other people so that it can feel easier. But I do still think there is a knee-jerk gut reaction when it is your child who now is living in a world that it's going to be a little bit more challenging.
Right.
Please God, let it be a situation where it's actually not going to be that much more challenging. It's just some freaking pronouns that we're going to figure out, and that's fine. And one day, it's all of our hopes that that's the world we live in, but there's got to be that fear.
There is. And, I can frame up for you when he came out. Well, first of all, he came out to his brother, and he's told this story several times, as far as our family goes.
It's really underwhelming.
It's very underwhelming. But basically, he said to his brother, the 17-year-old, what would you think if I was a boy? And his brother, in his infinite wisdom, said, okay. So he said, what would you think if I decided to change my name to Adrian? To which Lucas responded,
well, you'd need to get your name tag at work changed.
Very practical.
Which I have.
Which he has.
Very
Yes.
practical.
Official now.
So, I mean, that essentially went pretty underwhelmingly. So then he decided to tell me. Now, if I can frame this up for all of the moms out there, when he told me was during the Kavanaugh hearings. So in my brain, and I believe at this point I've told him this, maybe not. If he breaks down and cries, we're going to pause. But in my brain, I was like, seriously, a white man? Like, that's what you want? Here I thought I had raised this amazing, like, strong... Okay, I hadn't told him yet. But I was like, what the hell? Like, I felt like the biggest failure as a woman for a split second. Now, of course, to him, I was like, okay, well, I don't know how to respond, but I love you anyway, and we're going to figure this out together. This is a journey, and
that what you
I
said?
have a lot of questions.
And what did you say?
I didn't really respond. I just said, okay, that's better than I was expecting.
But my
Back to
inner
the hearings.
monologue was like, I can't stand this. Like, why? No. What happened in my parenting that made you think you were strong enough to turn into a white man? Like, I went too far. I took it too far. I took this independent, strong, successful woman thing way too far. Like, damn it. Next, he's going to tell me he likes beer.
No, I do not.
No, but so, I mean, so, you talk about those initial reactions, and, that's a story that CNN didn't get. So good congratulations on Bourbon. But, inside, yeah, I had a lot of reconciliation inside of my little broken mama heart, because I had been so good at raising a woman that was better than all the women I knew. And, I still am, he is now a man, and has always been. And that part of that is reconciling that I gave birth to a baby boy. I was told by the doctor that it had girl parts. And so I decided at that point that it was a girl, because that's what we do. But looking back, and I think a huge part of the healing process for me and feeling that I was losing this perfect daughter that I had was in realizing that the memories don't change. And he's always been a little boy and then a teenage boy. And the journey might have been different if we had known earlier. I've had a lot of parents reach out to me and tell me that at 5, their child has told them that they're the opposite sex from what, their privates tell them that they are. And they want to know how they should respond. And, my only answer is, God, I wish I had known. All of the pain and all of the hurt that he went through that right now we really do chalk up as being normal teenage stuff, teen angst. These kids know a lot more than we give them credit for. Your kids know a lot more than society is going to give them credit for. And if you listen, they'll tell you. They'll let you know what's going on in their hearts. And, your question of what if it changes back, this is a transition. It's called a transition for a reason. Everybody has to transition. And what the end result is, right now, I'm 100% positive that he's a man. He was born a little boy, and he's grown into an amazing young man. If at any point that changes, that wouldn't change anything that I did over these past months. It wouldn't change my love for him even still. And, as a pregnant person, I think all pregnant women are smug, myself including. But they all walk around and say things like, as long as it's healthy, I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. And I would love to know for 50% of parents when that changes. Because I can look at him and say, he's healthy. A lot of people have reached out ever since Fox News took up the story and, tell me that I'm a terrible mother. And if
people are actually reaching out to you in that way?
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, Heather,
most
I'm so
people.
Sorry.
But, when they reach out and say these things to me, most of the time they'll tell me it's a mental disorder, which, goes back to the DSM-5, the manual for these disorders. And in every single instance where it's cited, it is as a reason for, social anxiety or a reason for depression. It's not a disorder in and of itself. Or they'll say, if he had just gone to church and been baptized.
Was baptized.
And then they want to know if he was baptized as a boy or a girl. And I'm like, well, as a Christian. They didn't check.
When I was baptized, I was not wearing my binder.
Exactly. And associated as a girl at that point. But I don't think that, you know, if there is a God, I don't think that he's looking down being like, all right, that one's out. I hate that kid. Because parents don't do that.
No.
Good parents don't do that. So if there's a God and if he's a good parent, he probably isn't going to do that.
I have a hard time believing any God of any religion could look down at their creations and say, that one right there. I just don't want that one. That one can go to damnation.
Yeah.
Screw that one.
Redo. And, you know, and then the other thing is that, you know, more and more of the conservative people who aren't reading the article will say things like, you know, I wish that you would just accept your son for who he is and stop trying to turn him into some sissy woman. And I'm like,
wait, what?
Okay. No, then I think we're on the same page.
Mission accomplished.
Although I feel awkward admitting that to you. So, you know, there's been a big variety of reaction.
It's really funny. The only person who's actually reached out to me personally to send hate was a woman from New Hampshire. And she decided to send "you're sick" throwing up emoji. And it was just...
Hate with emojis is the best.
You couldn't even use a GIF? Come on.
Right.
What the hell?
Nothing.
I am worth a good GIF.
Lazy hate.
Lazy hate.
I was torn between laughing at it and being offended. I chose to laugh because you can't take anything hateful seriously when it's followed by emojis.
Especially when they don't know you.
Right. And my only response was just, well, I think you're wrong. I hope you'll reconsider. And I hope you can learn to love people for who they are.
Yeah.
And the saddest part is she has 2 kids. And I'm worried for them because what if one of them comes out as anything other than straight cisgendered? There are hurdles they'll have to leap with her in order to continue being loved. And that's the scariest thing for a lot of people in the LGBTQ, IA+.
It's a long.
I know. Didn't I hear someone say that like it's okay to just say the queer community?
It is.
I don't know.
You can,
But like back in the day, queer was a bad word.
Right.
So
we've taken it back, yeah. But that's the hardest part for the community is that there are things that people put restrictions on, and love is one of them, unfortunately. And it's scary to think that you could go to your mother or your father and say, so this is who I am, and they can suddenly retract all the love they've given you for the last few odd years. It's scary to think that you could tell anyone, I like this person. This is the person I'm in love with, and they can shut you out because of that. And the biggest part that a lot of parents who are on that side need to know is that when you tell someone, especially your child, that you can't love and accept them because of how they identify, you're just closing off any connection to them and whatever family they're going to create. If you ever want to see grandkids from them, if you ever want to be their wedding, their graduation, any big part of their lives, if you ever want to be able to say, that's my kid, you need to love and accept them, even if you don't quite understand what they're going through, because saying, I will always love you, is the difference between having a child and not.
I wish that me posting this transgender reveal was the norm and not the exception.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's got so much mileage so far is honestly heartbreaking in a way. You know, that it's 2019 and we started out celebrating a mother's unconditional love for her child. Like, let that sink in. You know, it's not okay. You know, like, people should have been like, duh, like, funny, yeah, but of course you love your child.
Yeah.
But that's not the response. The response is, you know, mom goals, what a great mother of the year, which I've never been in the running for mother of the year. Like, not since like January 3rd, for sure.
I mean, you're my favorite mother.
Thanks.
That's very sweet.
I'm holding on to it, you know, well into February. Wait till March, I'll mess it up. But yeah, I mean, it is shocking to me that this is something that we celebrate. You know, I hope that I'll be alive to see it be so profoundly weird when a parent doesn't accept their child when they say something like this.
So I feel like we've talked about a lot of great stuff tonight and stuff that hopefully will help people who might be going through similar situations. But if both of you could leave one thing with our listeners, either as a parent, how you feel, a piece of advice that you could leave them to respond, or something just to remember, and as someone going through, something that you would hope parents would think about when their child comes to them with this information, how would you hope they would respond?
Well, for me, and this is probably true for a lot of people in the queer community, the hardest part about coming out is coming out to yourself and learning to love and accept yourself, even if everyone else doesn't, and knowing that you're going to be okay, even if everyone around you says otherwise. And the most difficult part of that is going to be bearing yourself to the people you love and preparing yourself for the backlash and for the possible hate that you may or may not receive. And parents need to understand that it's not about them. It is about the person who is coming out. You can dislike that your child is not straight or not cis. You can not completely agree with it or understand it, but know that if you don't, they are never going to trust you again, unless you come to them and say, I messed up. I want to fix this. I want to understand. I want to make it right. Because right after you tell someone, I can't love you if you identify this way, you have immediately identified yourself as someone unsafe. You will not be in that person's life anymore if they have a choice in it. They will shut you out. And if you don't want that to happen, you need to just love and accept them for who they are. And for anyone who is going through that struggle right now and is in the queer community, know that it's going to be okay, even if the people that you thought were going to be there for you and thought were going to love you, even if they aren't there anymore or aren't who you thought they were, there is a community out there for you, and you're going to be loved and accepted for who you are by a family that maybe isn't related to you by blood, but is related to you in other ways that are much stronger and more important. And it's going to be okay. It's hard now, but it will be okay in the end.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
I think for me, what I want to leave parents with is that right now, while we're trending and people are really focused on us and asking for our opinions on everything, truly, if I was going to write a parenting book, it would have one page and it would say, love your child. And that's the beginning, middle, and end of it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that your child should be able to do that would cause you to take their love away. And if you're in a place where you can name something, and I've gone the gamut. I mean, I've thought like serial killer. What if they killed each other? You know what? Like I've really tried to figure it out. But if you're able to identify something that can make you stop loving your child, go to therapy now, because your kids are going to try you out. Right. You know, kids will always try to figure out what it would take for mom and dad to not accept them. And it might be something as small as being in the school musical or playing an instrument instead of football. It might have nothing to do with gender or sexuality or anything like that. But if you as a parent right now can think, if my child did this, said this, or was this, I don't know if I could love them. You're the one who needs to go get the therapy now and deal with it, because it probably stems from something. It could be from, you know, fears that are normal. We know that the world right now is not a safe place for trans people. So certainly I have those fears for my child. So I'm going to change the world. And, you know, as parents, we always say, I want to make the world a better place for my kid. So do it. Don't make excuses. If your child is not safe in the world that they're growing up in for any reason, quit your day job. Change the damn world, because somebody has to. And it's 2019, and this is the start. You know, we have the Free Hugs mom who went to all the Pride things, and, you know, she and I have connected, and that's been wonderful. But she changed it for parents of gay kids. I'm going to change it for parents of trans kids. Get out there and change the world. It's not that hard. You know, you can just do it with love and celebration. But if you sit back and think, the world's not safe for my kid, or I couldn't love my kid for this reason, then it's on you. You're the parent.
I love that. All right, you guys rock. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you both so much for joining us today. You're both amazing. And that's it for our episode on gender. For those of you who have not yet joined our Bourbon and Baby Straight Up Parenting on the Rocks page, please do so. It's a fun group, and we'd love you to join the discussion. And as always, we love our bourbon, we love our babies, but please drink responsibly. See you next week.